not good, not also grand, not second, not third. If you want to be great, the very best at what you do, obsession is a necessity. You must be. Ain't no two ways about it. I don't care if you flip pancakes, you sweep porches, you wash dishes, you bust tables. If you're the very best at it, you are obsessed about it. And obsessed about it means you slept and you dreamed and you ate that. I will be the very best at what I do. I am determined to be the very best at what I am. And you, nobody can tell me that I can't do it because I am obsessed.
Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We are here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room via our Facebook page and on Twitter.
Yeah, they say that she's a latch. Yeah, the whispers all around say she has a reputation. Don't believe it till I see it, so I want a demonstration. And I've always learned it better with a hands-on education. So I need a private session if you get what I am saying. And they say that she's not easy, no, she's really complicated. But that only makes it better, and it's got me so fixated. And I'm not the type to wait around, I've never hesitated. But she's got me captivated, so the game I'm gonna play it, yeah. She's got a body like the cocaine. She likes to keep the party going. These rumors got me feeling lonely. I want that body, baby, show me. She's got a body like
That's right, everyone. Welcome to another episode, January 14th of Stu and the Nunn. All the Nunn knew was I was like, I got some new intro stuff coming.
That was good. That was good.
Motivational, wasn't it?
Hype. It's like, be the best.
No matter what you do, mop floors, take out the trash, do whatever, you be the best at what you can do. And guess what? Pretty soon you'll be getting $15 an hour to do it too. Not sure how long you keep that job, but we'll talk about that.
Allegedly.
For you, my friend, a little blue light from the north of the border. Sorry about that.
Coke Zero.
Oh, there you go. My videos, am I looking a little dark? Do I need to lighten up a little bit?
You should probably, you've been in Buffalo for a minute, so yeah, your soul is dark.
My soul is dark. I'm not getting a tan up here. That's for sure. I think it must have been all that awesome smell today, that venison jerky just wavering through my house all day.
I don't want to say my mouth was watering, but I was salivating for that.
Christmas gifts are coming out a little late this year. Let's just say some folks will be very happy.
I'm not here to judge.
Of course, not at all. Welcome, everyone. We are so glad you're joining Toby and I this January 14th here. We are a couple weeks in, and Toby, it's been a long ride this last, really 4 years, but you can say probably the last year and a year and a half, and this whole campaign season, but we're not quite there yet, are we? It ain't quite, we have to put a bow on this one.
Yeah, we are, but we're not. Like, it's over, it's done. There's no changing.
No.
But we're not done with it. And I gotta tell you, on behalf of a good portion of the country and a small amount of the world, getting a little exhausted, man. Getting a little wore out, getting a little, fatigued.
Yeah.
Je suis fatigué. I mean, as my Quebecois brothers would say, je suis fatigué.
Man, look at you. We're kind of international. Yeah, look at that. Everybody's IQ just went up a point. Doug
Yeah,
is
that one.
Doug has got apparently hearing aids in, and he's just catching up on his French right now. But yeah, and speaking of your old French thing, watching my Sabres playing the Caps right now. Hockey season is back. Let me tell you how good it is to be up here in the Northern Studio in Buffalo. We got the Bills looking pretty good. Going into this second round of the playoffs this weekend. Hard fought battle against the Ravens, no doubt, is not going to be easy. And we got the Sabres back on the TV. You know, typically I'm a great Bills fan till December. By then they've let me down, and I'm like, well, thank God I got Sabres. This is 2020. Things are a little bit different. Bills are doing well. Sabres just started in January, but we'll take it. So right now this is a sports town. Let me tell you.
Well, Buffalo and Tampa, for sure. Like lots, big things are brewing. Big things are brewing, but not the Bruins.
Not the Bruins.
Aren't, but not the Bruins.
Bruins aren't a Bruin. And Tampa's
no,
only brewing because they got Brady, but we'll see if he's taken out here. I don't know.
We'll see. Like the former captain of the Bruins, Zdeno Chara, is visiting y'all tonight.
He is
and making his debut as a Capital.
Didn't like him. Didn't like him as a Bruins. Don't like him as a Cap.
No, the only good news is Wilson and him won't be fighting this year.
Yeah, I hear he's a really nice guy off the ice. A lot of people from the Boston area tell me.
Yeah, of course.
He's a total.
You don't get the.
Yeah, he's an a-hole on the ice, but total nice.
You don't get the chowder from being an a-hole.
Yeah.
Like when you look at, and this is a great leadership discussion, right? And everyone's like, oh, you guys are supposed to talk politics, not hockey. Hockey is politics, yo.
Yeah.
Ask the ice summits. Glasnost didn't, like.
Stu and the Nunn. We don't just talk politics. We talk about all kind of stuff, and hockey.
Yeah, perestroika didn't happen if it wasn't, for like the Red Army, having to face a couple of North American teams. The Red Army making their tours over here to play teams. That's where a lot of these backroom discussions and diplomacy happened that actually led forth to perestroika and glasnost. If it wasn't for Reagan and Gorbachev being able to utilize hockey as a venue, so there you go, boom, breaking it down for you.
That's it.
But I
want to give a shout out real quick to our sponsors. One of which you and I are supporting heavy tonight. VO everywhere you look, nice looking VO green shirt there. Got the VO Captain America GI Joe shirt on. Got my VO hat on. But I also got to give a shout out to Commodity Outdoor Development Group. Enlisted 9.
Rocking the.
Oh,
yeah.
What you got, Commodity down there?
Well, what?
There you go.
Doubling up.
That's it. Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Veteran Outdoors, Boohammer.com, and of course our honorary sponsor, Gear for Grunts. Always got to throw them a shout too. But anyways, yeah. So paying the bills there, sort of. They don't really pay us that much, but anyways, sort of paying the bills. But want to just get right into it. We got a busy night tonight, a lot of stuff to talk about. I was on with Dave Bellavia today on his show. I was on twice this week. He asked me on. I was on today, and right before we got off the air, he goes, "Troy, who do you got on tonight?" And I was like, "Nobody. We're just talking. There's nothing short to talk about. Like we are gabbing." I'm not speaking of Gab, the alternative to Twitter, which is left still since Parler's gone, but gabbing as far as talking. So, yeah, a lot to talk about. We chat a little bit before the show about that, and just kind of where do you want to go? I mean, I got a couple topics I want to hit on, but I want to kind of see where do you want to go? Where do you want to start with tonight?
Well, social media. Let's just start there real fast. We are seeing something really interesting in the terms of censorship, and I gotta tell you that it's a scary place to be, where people can censor not just society, but can censor leadership. There's nothing brave about it. There's nothing courageous about it. And currently there's nothing illegal about it. But that should probably change.
Yeah, it's a whole Section
and
230, right? That was a whole Section 230.
yeah, and I think we're going to see that happen, and I think, like so many other things, the crows are going to come home to roost, and you're going to get what you ask for. And in this, situation of cancel culture, they're going to start censoring the wrong people. Right now, they're censoring in their mind the right people. Pardon the pun.
Good one.
And it's gonna turn around and bite them. People are, I have one of my best employees, young, awesome, super talented, great example of that age group. Very well spoken, intelligent, articulate. Even she, is like making jokes about certain people's tweets not aging well. And, like, you can't claim all these things and utilize the media and social media to promote and perpetuate your cause if you're guilty of it. And while everyone knows there's this double standard in social media and the tech industry, every time you see a double standard like that, it always turns around and bites somebody. Perfect example. We want to talk about equality within the military. We're military guys. We came up in the military. Like, there were certain roles that females weren't, allowed into, and like, she likes to take credit for it. She's not the one that should get credit for it, but like the not so little person from Round Rock, Texas, called MJ Hagar, that's 0-2 in political campaigns, is like, you can't say that you want equality in combat roles for women and then be like, oh well, but the draft shouldn't count for us.
Right.
Like, no, like, it's going to turn around and bite you. You're going to get what you asked for, and you're going to censor people, and you don't like the message that they're sending, like, it's going to bite you. Wait till AOC, gets censored. Now,
Right.
like, we're going to talk about her. I think this is a great lead-in, but AOC in the past week has made like crazy comments, and when I say crazy, I mean she's openly showing her agenda. She's openly showing her plan. Now, I say
Right.
hers because I don't know if it's the plan of the party, and I don't know if it's the plan of the people. I don't know if it's the plan of her constituents.
I think it's a plan of her and her comrades.
But like, it's definitely her plan.
Right.
And one of the things she will say, or has said, is we need to rein in the media.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, careful what you wish for.
Is that all the media? Because really, most of the media is on your side, so you probably want to not rein all that in, and you can't go after one side.
But like, that's the thing. It's like,
but the media is not social media, right? Because they're protected. So the media is the ones on the big square box, right? Not the little box in front of you. It's
like, you're gonna have a hard time arguing when guys like, and I don't know if he's doing this or not, but I'll use him as an example. Tucker Carlson has more people watching him online than watch him on television, even though the programming that's shown online is filmed and produced per broadcast of television. That's not where people are watching it. The majority of his views are coming from online views. And so, like, if that's true for Tucker Carlson, that's probably true for insert name here, with the exception of MSNBC. I don't think anyone's like getting up in the morning going, man, I can't wait to look at Mika.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But it's funny you mentioned that real quick to roll. I mean, we have a lot of people watch us live while we do the show, but we get a lot more people once this show's over that catch us at later times, and they watch us after the fact on all of our outlets. So I guess I could see it. And talking to Dave, he broadcasts live every day, but they get more people that play his show after the fact, even though he's on for 3 hours, because it's just not convenient for them. They can go back and listen to it whenever they want. So that's definitely a medium. But then it makes you wonder, well, what about just to control the internet? Well, what's next? And I don't want to go conspiracy theories here, but I'm just going to take us down a hole just for a second. What right now, what we see is people trying to say, hey, if someone worked for the Trump administration, you shouldn't hire them. We have people saying, hey, if someone ever went out publicly and said they supported, I forgot who it was now. I just saw where an actor, or somebody, or someone support. Oh no, it was who's the pitcher, the baseball guy, said he was canceled by his insurance because he was a public supporter of Trump, so the insurance company canceled his policy. Right? When is it when Comcast, Time Warner, whatever is going to cancel your internet connection because they think you just spewed too much far right stuff from your home network, right? People may say it sounds crazy, but I don't think it's that far off.
It's not that far off, and now I want you to hear my stream of consciousness on this. I can't wait. Like, I cannot wait for that. I can't wait for like AOC calling for a list, the list of, financial supporters of Trump to be released. Like, I can't wait, because that's not the mob that stormed the Capitol building. Now, to be so ignorant, naive, and nearsighted to think that the actual reflection of the supporters of the current president or outgoing president of the United States were the people that stormed the Capitol building, you're a fool. It doesn't matter what your soundbite is. It doesn't matter what your angle for, if it bleeds, it leads, like half the people were like radical, like over the top, frustrated people. And the other half were like wannabe internet reporters, right?
Right.
Trying to get that, like, look at me, like, just like we see with Antifa and all that crap. Now, when I say Antifa, I mean people embed themselves, these wannabe reporters embed themselves with organizations because they're trying to get that moment. They're trying to get those views. They're going after that clickbait. I'm not making a statement saying Antifa were the ones that did that. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying it's the same behavior.
Right.
Right. The social media aspect of it, these wannabe civilian reporters, like, hey, I'm exercising my First Amendment right. I'm a member of the press. Like, you're not. You're not credentialed. You haven't taken any courses.
You can't take a Sharpie and put it on a piece of tape, put on your helmet, and say press.
Like, that does not make a press credential. So, like, I can't wait for that to happen, because when they find out who actually supports who, like, it's going to have consequences, and history, you don't have to go that far back. I mean, we only got to go a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. In fact, pick any one of those years where someone outed a conservative business for whatever belief, and they saw their stock rise, skyrocket.
Yeah.
Like Whataburger. They grew.
Chick-fil-A.
Like Chick-fil-A is where I was going.
Right.
Like Home Depot, they seem to be doing okay. Hobby Lobby seem to be doing okay. Oh shit, you want something like ethnic in foods in terms of like Hispanic? Goya seems to be doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, out people.
It boomerangs every time.
The people that you're,
it boomerangs every time.
The people that you're outing are going to respond with actual power, not perceived power. AOC has perceived power. She thinks because she sits in a seat and she gets to push a button that says yay or nay, and she gets in front of a microphone and she can say whatever, like her mindless heart contends. Like, that's not power. That's perceived power. She might be able to influence some votes and stuff like that. But in the end, like, in her own district, she learned, like, she shut down Amazon, right? She shut down Amazon in her district.
That was her power in there. And you see where her power is?
Right.
She goes and does these videos. She has no influence on the floor. That's why she didn't get any of the committee she wanted.
Yeah.
She and when you badmouth Queen Nancy, I mean, she runs that party. You're not going to, my dad has always told me from when I was this high, you get more bees with honey do vinegar. And when you start bad-mouthing the head of your party, then you shouldn't complain when you don't get something handed to you. So she goes to her videos and tries to stir up. She speaks to her own echo chamber, and she tries to stir up her own people to get them all riled up and make it look like there's some kind of, it's no different than a guy we know named Michael. I'm not going to say his last name, going to his own people and writing a post from Thailand and getting everyone all worked up, and he makes himself feel good because he has his 25 followers, pumping him up and saying they pray for him, right?
Yeah.
But, anyways,
dude,
I went there.
Not a fan. But no, like go after those people, because that's how Donald Trump got elected in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go after him. And now, like, he didn't get reelected, and there's some really solid reasons why he didn't. But keep going after the majority of the people in the country that don't like being told they're a piece of shit.
Right. There's essentially a number of folks,
racist.
right? But there's a number of people in the media, in the mainstream media, who are pretty much calling 74 million people in America racist and bigots and everything else, right? And non-Americans and non-patriots. I mean, they've done it in the last 24 hours. They're calling out, saying anyone that voted for Trump, right?
Yeah.
What one of the congresswomen, I think it was Presley, right? They need to de-Baathify, making a reference, for those who don't know, to the Ba'ath Party of Iraq, right? To kind of brainwash or unbrainwash.
That was a personal favorite, that was a personal favorite, because I was like, oh shit, I'm about to get a new car. I'm about to be allowed to drink Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome. No, like, those kinds of ridiculous statements. And when you constantly say that, like I said it last week, I'm going to say it again, because I'm proud of the way I came up with it. I thought it was witty, at the top of my hat, but I stand by it. If you think that you can tell 70 plus million people that they're Nazis and racists because they voted for Trump, and they're complicit in everything that happened, then, y'all are complicit, or they all are complicit in, 9/11, because they, at some important time, have worn sandals. Like, to make the same correlation is just ludicrous.
Right.
And it's not going to take long for people to, like, get tired of that. And people are already tired of it. But the only reason why Donald Trump isn't president is because they convinced just a very slim margin of people that might be true. And people are going to find out real quick, like, oh, wait, like, that's bullshit. It's like, I haven't heard Black Lives Matter in a minute. Like,
right.
Do they not matter anymore? Oh, or is it because, like, it got outed as kind of bullshit?
Right.
Like the people behind the movement ended up being, like, a little questionable, not in it for Black lives. One of the members of the board ain't black, and it was convicted of domestic terrorism by planting bombs in a certain, what building was that? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh
yeah, it's so let's talk about that, right? The theme of the inauguration next week is American United. When I heard that, I had to do a double. I was like, is that an Onion story? Like, there's no way that the Democratic Party and candidate who's going to become president picked America United as a theme when you have 74 million people, when you had just what happened last week, and then you have a second inauguration shoved and rushed through Congress in literally within hours after they for the first time, first time ever, pushed this new thing to push the vice president to enact the 25th Amendment. A first. Trump's broke a lot of firsts. He's done a lot of firsts. Yeah. He's done a lot of firsts. These are a couple he didn't want. One, they pushed his 25th Amendment thing through, and then literally 6 to 8 hours later, started an impeachment and brought an impeachment all the way through in just a matter of 5 hours or so. Right. And being impeached twice now, the same president. More firsts he got, probably not the ones he wanted to see, but you see all that. Where in any person's mind, Toby, that has 2 inches of forehead and can put one foot in front of the other, do they think that is going to unify America? Where? How does someone look at that and go, oh, that'll bring 74 million people over? Oh, yeah, the 300,000 last week that just left their work, that incurred personal costs, that got on flights and drove for hours, that come to D.C. just to hear this man speak one more time. And of that 300,000, 100 broke into the Capitol and did whatever they did, and then got out. But 300,000 left their lives and went there and did that. And that's a fraction of the tens of thousands that we saw for a year line up for hours and every time to hear him speak, right? Which you could watch the news and hear him say the same thing from city to city to city. People still wanted to go hear him speak. They think those people are going to see this and go, yeah, let's get united. Let's put all this behind us. We're going to forget this. They are further driving a wedge in the center of this country. And there's I don't see any way to pull that out without something really drastic happening.
Yeah, no, I concur. I want to correct myself, and I want to point out Mandy Spanton. I hope I said that right in the Facebook chat room. She's right. We saw it in Georgia. Like, Trump did himself no favors and definitely lost some votes as a result of that. But there were people that didn't vote for him that reaped all the benefits of what he did for this country because they were convinced, Orange Man bad because somebody said that. Now, to your point, this impeachment, if we were, trying to unify the country and there was proof of unity, you'd have seen it in that vote.
Yeah.
You'd have seen it in the vote. If there was unity on this and the American people believed in it, you'd have seen it in the vote. But instead you saw a vote straight down party lines.
For the most part.
Like what, 10 Republicans?
10 Republicans.
Yeah.
But
that barely making double digits. Pardon me. That's not a reflection of unity. Like, now I would say that, people voted based on their own personal value of their party versus probably their constituents, which is not a great reflection of the system. But if we were looking for proof of unity, you would have seen it in that vote, but we didn't.
Right.
What we saw is you saw a staunchly divided vote,
which represents a staunchly divided country.
Yeah, I did not hear a compelling, and I said it last week on the air, and I stand by what I said, and if I need to repeat it, I will. I believe that in saying what he said, he has to own some culpability because he had to have known somebody would take that information and run with it. I use the example of your commander's doors off his Humvee got stolen, his drip pans are missing, and you're like, everyone wants to go home. Everyone wants to go home. It's Friday. You're doing motor pool closeout. Everyone wants to go home, and the commander's Humvee doors are missing. I'm the headquarters platoon sergeant. I'm looking at, my Joes, and I'm like, you guys need to go find the CO's doors and drip pan.
And his drip pan, because the first sergeant and the sergeant major is going to come see that shit. Roll your ass
you
out.
You better find the commander's drip pan. And all of a sudden, there's a stencil out, there's black spray paint being signed out, and voila, there are now doors back on a Humvee, and there's a drip pan down there, catching the class 1 leak that, the commander has, because he has the ability to circle X.
Circle X. And they may be they may be tan doors on a green Humvee. Don't ask where he got them from.
But it's got doors. And the reason I say that is you have to know and you have to be responsible in your calls to action. And what he said was a direct call to action. Now, he didn't say storm the Capitol. He didn't say hurt people. He didn't say beat an innocent man to death with flagpoles. He didn't say that.
Nope.
But what he did say was go there and make your voice heard.
Which they could have
So,
done
like,
from outside the building, and they were doing, which
Right.
is absolutely. And he said, we want strong people, not weak. And he wasn't saying be strong and bust in. He was talking about he wanted members of Congress to be strong and kick back and question the electoral vote. That's what he wanted.
But in saying that, he holds culpability. And like, I know a lot of people disagree with me, and you know, I got some really nice messages,
Did you?
you know, I did about taking that stance. But like, I you know, like,
Well, we don't agree on that. We've talked about it. We don't agree. We don't
Yeah,
see eye to eye.
but
on
it's
that.
like, I know that his intent probably, I don't know the man. I'm saying the words that he used didn't demonstrate like malicious intent,
Right.
but he has to know his base.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I think he does know better than a lot of other people. He knows his base. And while this is just a tiny little bit of his base, you know, like, just like that, you got that one private, he's got that hot date, and you know, he'll be damned if he doesn't get that, you know, date. He gonna find them doors.
Yeah.
That drip pan's
Oh.
gonna say Charlie 06 on it. You know,
Hey,
like,
that lead E4 of the E4 Mafia wants to get out of there because he poker nights at his house tonight, and and he wants to get out of there, or he's got the hot date, right? And you know, so it's you know, yeah, he knows his base. Could he have meant something? Maybe. Was he vague? Did he? Yes, but he was. I mean, if he did mean to do it, if he tried to do a read between the lines, then he was very effective. And the problem is, if you're not clear like that, then it can be whoever the perception's reality. However you want to spin it, people can say no, it wasn't. Yes, it was. Unlike, let me point out, unlike his video last night. The video, 5-minute video he released last night, calling for peace, calling for no violence, saying that anyone that did that or is violent against our law enforcement is not a supporter of his, and he doesn't consider in his base. He released all that last night.
Yep.
You may be asking yourself, listeners and viewers, oh, I didn't see this video. That's probably because short of one or two news outlets, none of them would carry it. Now, there's 5 million views online, but none of the major news outlets carried the video of our president addressing the nation, calling for peace and calling for no violence. The same media outlets that said he instigated and called for violence and loved to spin that. Now when he sits there and he's staring the camera and says, you're not my people. You're not a supporter. You don't love this country if you do that. That's not what we do. And yet
no,
there's crickets because they won't care.
and that's why I believe the censorship is going to turn on them. We have 316 million people in the United States. You know, like roughly.
Yeah.
I know it's over 300 million, right?
Yeah, it's over 300 million. Yeah.
I think it's 316-ish.
Yeah. Give or
million, you know, people in the United States. 5 million people got access to that video. Like, that's the
Rob corrected us.
leader.
330 according to Rob. I knew he'd come with a number.
See, like, bless his heart. That's why he gets paid in hats and T-shirts. You know, that is unbelievable, and it's sad and it's heartbreaking, and that's not because I got any love for the dude. That's just because, like, there's 330 million people in this country. 325 million people in this country. They got shortchanged to hear a message of hope and unity from their actual current leader.
Yeah.
And like, if you're concerned about a peaceful transfer of power, if you're concerned about the future of interpersonal relationships,
You being the media outlets, if you're truly emphatic on
Right.
this, right?
yeah, like, you just stopped 325 million people from
Hearing that message,
the most important man in the world doing his job.
right? Because you
And-
know damn well, and
and-
I bet my salary on it that if he said next Tuesday go up there and make your voice be heard and let them know we're pissed, if he said anything like that, they would have all carried it.
They'd all carried it.
And it'd be on repeat, nonstop, right? Twitter may even open his account back up just so he could tweet that, right?
We got a really good insight into, how the major news conglomerate handles itself when, Project Veritas, released the tapes of all the calls between the media heads, plotting their agenda and like talking their talking points and making sure that all their people use the right buzzwords. Like that is going to turn around and it's going to bite them, like the crows are going to come home to roost.
Yeah.
And, like when they want something to get pushed through and all of a sudden it's like, well, big tech actually disagree with your plan on internet security.
Yeah.
So they're not going to release that to the world. Then it's like, like it's going to happen.
Here's one difference I think we're going to see, Toby. I just want to highlight this because I know we're going to get a couple of other topics. The Republican Party of past, the Republican Party of the last 20, 30 years, we know is kind of not, and I don't mean this in a bad way,
COVID,
but they're kind of like the Canadians of Congress, right? The Democrats hold fast. The Republicans would roll over in a second. They'd like, we're going to fight. And then they would lose and they'd be like, oh, it's okay, right? The Dems come throw swords and they threw everything. The Republicans are like, well, we're not going to do that. We're better than that, right? And they kept losing and losing and losing. The Republican Party today, these young ones, Mace and the lady out of Colorado and all these young, mostly a lot of veterans and these young GOP candidates that are coming up, they're not the established Republicans of the last 30 years who just rolled over every time they kind of lost and it was just mean. It wasn't nice to be that way to the Democrats, even though they treated the Republicans that way. This Republican Party, which is raised in the era of Trump, emboldened by him, and is just a new, younger generation, I think is going to be one that continues to shove it back in the Democrats' face. They're not going to roll over like the Republicans did for the last 30 years, which is what they did. They rolled over and played nice with the Democrats every time, and the Democrats continued to undermine them, continued to steal, continued to do this. These new Republicans aren't going to allow it. We have a Republican brand new freshman House member who has already committed to say she is introducing impeachment articles against Biden the day after he's inaugurated. That's coming home to roost. They're not even pausing, right? She's brand new. A freshman congressperson doesn't have power to do crap. They're lucky they have a badge and a place to park. She is introducing articles of impeachment against Biden day one. This new Republican Party is here to stay, and I think that supports everything you just said, that they better be careful what they wish for, because these folks aren't going to forget. They're not going to play nice.
No, and I agree with that. But it's going to take some effort to get some of that moral high ground back, because like in some of these antics, they've lost some of that. But I absolutely think that there's going to be a huge pushback, and one of the reasons there's going to be a huge pushback is I remember in 2008, so the beginning of 2009, it was like, we have to get everything in as fast as we possibly can. And, it's like executive order. My favorite was the very first executive order. I'm closing Guantanamo Bay. I believe it's open, like right now. I think there's National Guard troops, like cycling through. Like,
the ones that aren't in DC, they're not in the 20,000.
The ones that are in shape, the ones that actually pass 600-9 that are deployable are down there. Not deplorable, deployable.
Yeah.
Some
may be deplorable by depending who you ask.
Yeah, but like the there's going to be this mad dash, and it's like, we got to get this through. And, like there's a lot of people that are really excited about the opportunity to undo a lot of things and to push a lot of agendas. And I'm all for it.
And they have 2 years to do that, because they're losing in 2 years.
And that's the thing, is they really have a year. They really have a year to do it.
Yeah, because then they go into campaign.
Because they don't want to be given too much power to the campaigns. And like let you talked about it, like universal minimum wage.
Yeah.
Uh,
$15 an hour nationwide, federal. How many? Toby, you're a small business owner. You're a guy
as a
who's
matter of fact, I am.
and in fact, you have been involved. You're probably one of the most entrepreneurial people I know. One of my closest friends that is involved in more businesses. In fact, it's kind of Christine every once in a while say something. She'd be like, "What business does Toby have now?" Like, what new deal does he started? And what do you think? I want to ask you. $15 an hour. Now, I don't know what you pay your people. You hire some pretty awesome folks and talented, but you can definitely relate to the smallest of business owners who probably, can just barely make sell their services or goods and make a minimum wage.
So here,
what is minimum wage? 7 something, right? 7 something.
It's $7.25 according to the OSHA poster that I have in my establishment, which is making sure that I am in compliance.
So doubling minimum wage.
They are looking at doubling the federal minimum wage. Now, there are locations within the United States that have localized their minimum wage and raised it. The first and foremost, or at least the most popular, most covered one, I don't believe they were actually the first, but the most covered one was Seattle. The city of Seattle raised their minimum wage to $15. Now, anytime that, and this is just basic economics, you don't have to graduate high school to know this. You probably learn it in the 9th or 10th grade, I would imagine. It's not, crazy algebra. It's not super high-end arithmetic.
No trigonometry needed.
No calculus, no algorithm required. It's actually it's pretty simple. If you have a product and you are selling a product, the success of your company is based off of the margin that you make off of that product. All your costs, the means of production, the means of distribution, all have to fall into
advertising.
All that has
operational overhead,
cost of goods,
yep,
needs to be less than the suggested price or the actual price of your goods. I'm a producer. I produce product, and I'll say in one of my businesses, I have people that make what would become the minimum wage. And that's because they are skilled labor, educated, skilled labor, and they deserve and earn the value that they put in. But I'm only able to pay them what I feel that they deserve as a value as a result of what I can get for my product.
What you charge for your product. Yes. Absolutely.
Which I charge for my product. I am in an industry that if I raise the price of my product, my sales will immediately reflect that.
Yep.
And if I lower the price of my product, I'm in an industry that the margins are so thin,
you're losing money,
that I will not remain in business.
Right. Basic economics, business.
Basic
101.
economics.
Yes.
You see it reflected in McDonald's. Okay. We're talking about $15 an hour. How many hamburgers can McDonald's sell to support the staff that they have if they're paying them $15 an hour?
But let me so
they can't.
Which
right?
is why the McDonald's near my house has 4 kiosks and 2 people. And you go up there, and I worked at McDonald's in high school. If I want to keep doing that, I would stay at McDonald's. I don't like going up there trying to figure out and hit all that kind of stuff. I'm just like, I give you an order, give my stuff, I get out. Yep. Walmart is starting a test run store in Bentonville at their headquarters. I think now, no cashiers. I know most people will be like, well, hell, every time I go to Walmart, there's no cashiers anyways. There's like 1 or 2. There won't even be 1 or 2. Walmart's starting their full cashier-less store they're going to run this year. Only self-checkout. No cashiers. Now, we all know that you go to typical Walmart, there's 20 cash registers, there's 2 occupied, but even in the holidays they had those filled. That would be 20 people at $15 an hour. Guess what? They don't have to pay that anymore. That's you as a consumer. And they've trained us at the grocery store, at the warehouse clubs, at the Walmarts, at wherever you go. There's now self-checkout. It was pitched as enable you. Just get through real quick, cash a few things out. Now you can walk with 2 cartfuls. Guess what? You're going to scan everything yourself.
No, like what it's going to do is, like if you can't afford to have employees and you want to remain in business, you're going to find a way to stay in business without that number of employees. This is not going to help create jobs.
No, it's going to eliminate jobs.
It's going to cost jobs.
Yeah.
And then, like you're going to have an even greater disparity. Like you're going to have an even greater disparity.
This is where our politicians miss it, right? New York last year, I just want to jump real quick. New York jumped on the $15 an hour for anyone in the food industry, right? And they made everyone do it, which is why I think the McDonald's near me has a couple of things. They've lost sight that McDonald's, and we're not picking on McDonald's. You could pick any Wendy's, it doesn't matter, any fast food kind of entry level job.
Doesn't even have to be fast food.
Right, it doesn't be fast food. It could be grocery store, right? Those jobs were there not to be your flipping career, but to give you some money, to teach you basic economics, to give you a job, teach you what it's like to interact with the real world, right? So when you went to work and you were bagging groceries in high school, or you were delivering newspapers or flipping burgers, it wasn't meant that you were going to grow up and now you hear those stories that someone started at the bottom and they ended up becoming a CEO. Yeah, that's 1 in a billion that ever happens to, but it's not meant for you like, I'm going to go flip burgers and fries and I'm going to become the store manager one day. It was meant to give you some introduction to the real world, to what it means to hold a job and have responsibility. When you make it $15 an hour, you have now taken away the ability for a business that says, I'm not even going to give young people a chance to learn those skills because I'm going to put a kiosk or a self-checkout up. So not only you're going to make me give them $15 an hour, which I'm sure for a young worker thinks that's awesome, my pay's doubling, until they realize that their job is gone. But now the whole reason those jobs existed, right? You can self-check out yourself at the grocery store. And if you don't bring your own bags, then you wheel it out in your cart. There's no bagging. These young people today don't even get those basic life skills anymore. It's robbing of so many other things.
It's robbing of that opportunity. And it's also like robbing society of gainful employment. Like these jobs, they're not reappearing in another sector.
Mm-mm.
Like this is something that's going to affect every sector. If I have to pay, and this is just me speaking from, my heart and my economic situation. If I'm being forced to pay all my employees $15 an hour, I'm going to have a lot less employees. I'm going to work a lot more.
Right.
And
you're going to question, is this really what I want to do? I'm killing myself and
right.
being able to make me scratch.
I'm going to work a lot more. I'm going to have less employees. I'm going to automate some things. And, one of the things that I've been really focused and, I believe that, and, again, I don't care what kind of messages I get after this. I'm unapologetic about this. I believe that God has put it on my heart to help create jobs. I believe that God's put it on my heart to create and work in an industry that promotes North America, that brings jobs back to this place. And, I believe that deeply. I'm impassioned by it. That's why I'm in the industry that I'm at. The majority of my industry happens overseas. And I'm trying to bring that industry back to America to create jobs, good, fulfilling, honorable work that feeds families and enriches people's lives, provides wonderful benefits. But if I can't do that, I'm going to go somewhere else to do that.
You're either going to close up shop and go work for someone else doing that same thing and being an employee.
Or go somewhere else.
Or go somewhere else, right? Or send it offshore, right?
Right. Or go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, I can enrich a lot of lives in the Gulf of Mexico on an island in the Caribbean.
Right.
I can enrich and make a far greater impact on that economy than I can here.
And you could write off all your trips down there, which would be kind of nice too. But just saying,
and better fishing.
Yes, exactly.
you know, and I'm speaking somewhat flippantly and sarcastically, I dare say facetiously, but within every joke is a hidden truth.
Right.
You know, like,
That's what makes humor, right? Is that there's truth
yeah,
behind it, right? That's what makes it funny.
like we we will see a departure in industries.
We are
One of
not
the
going to
reasons,
see an increase, or we're not going to see the records that were set over the last 4 years of the lowest
no,
unemployment of Hispanics, blacks,
uh,
women, overall anybody. All that's gone, and
no,
that's
like,
what the American people wanted, apparently.
and what, you know, like, it doesn't matter what economist or talking head you look at. This is just a common sense thing. If, as an employer, as a business owner, if I have to pay my people more, I make less, and my business might not exist.
You may not be, well, you
And
can't make the
and you're
investments back
talking
into your
about,
business, right?
and
You're not going to have
and you're,
the capital to,
there will be no capital. There's no more margin.
right,
Uh, you know, like Biden talked about on his campaign trail about, you know, raising corporate taxes 30%. Well, most businesses in in America run off a 30% margin,
right.
and part of that margin is like reinvesting in themselves. Well, that's not going to happen.
No,
And we're also talking about doing all these things coming off of a huge depression created by poor policy and management of COVID.
yep,
This pandemic has economically depressed not just America, the world.
right,
Um, and when I say the management of it, I mean like the local management. I'm not talking about the big picture in terms of, you know, like creation of, you know, vaccines and airports and all that great stuff. I'm talking about like the bottom line, local government shutting businesses
the
down,
knee jerk
being
reaction with
knee
over,
jerk reaction, being tyrannical, not listening to science, not listening, you know, and not thinking it through, and, you know, being power hungry, and, you know, overreaching, and, you know, like, you're gonna put these kinds of restrictions. If you make universal minimum wage $15 in the next 6 months, they, well, I know two businesses that aren't going to make it
right.
as they currently exist.
That you just know, right? It's just the math is there. It does, like you
Like,
said, it
yeah,
doesn't take someone smart in calculus or trig or anything else. The math is pretty much there. Anyone that understands business and understands small business,
but here's
figure knows that. They
but here's the thing, and this is not a, a war on policy. It's a war on information. Is like people aren't being educated because what they're being told and what they're, you know, the talking heads, they're talking in these utopian places. You know, they're not talking to reality. They're not speaking to fact. They're speaking to concept. And, you know, like, that just isn't gonna work. You know, it doesn't matter how badly you want it. I wish we were in such a thriving economy that we could pay $15 an hour to everybody. I really wish we were. But, like, that's not the reality at which we live in. It doesn't matter. I sell a product internationally, and the product that I sell nationally, not just internationally, but nationally, you know, goes across a lot of different markets. The wages in California are much higher. The cost of living in California is much higher than the wages in Texas, and the cost of
which is
living
why
in
our
Texas.
buddy Travis just moved to Texas.
Hence why people are moving, you know, to places where the cost of living, not just taxes, but the cost of living is more affordable and more attainable. Like,
Right.
when you try to change that and you try to put something universally against it, you make it too hard for people with a lower cost of living to survive, and the people with a higher cost of living absolutely won't.
But
And that's
I want to hit on real more quick if I can about this wage thing. I think what people aren't looking at, because they've never, people can't think past that because they don't take time, is the ripple effect this is going to have. And by that, let me say this: you got some skilled workers. You talked about it. You have some folks, but let's say some other business, right? They have people that are making minimum wage. They're working on the factory floor. They're working out in a warehouse. They're making 7 something an hour. Well, this goes into plan, and you got other people who are actually CDL certified drivers, and they're working in the office and they're doing stuff. They got more skills. They've got another 5 years or so on them, and they've been promoted up and that kind of stuff. So now the young high school, just out of high school kid who was making 7 is now making 15, and the person that was more skilled and has had 5, 6, 7, 8 years there is making 18 because the range has went from 7 to 18. Well, now it's 15 to 18. So now that person's going, hey, why am I having to do all this? Why do I have to be a manager and deal with HR issues? Why do I have to do this for L18? This jackwagon's freaking making $15 an hour, and all he's doing is shoving things on the shelf, right? So he's gonna go, I want more, right? I'll leave this and go to some other job and make 15 an hour and just punch out every day, and I don't have to deal with all this BS. So I want 25 an hour. And then the other person who works, has a college degree, who's running the books, who's doing the accounting, is going, wait, I only make 22, and now that person making 25, I want 35 an hour. The ripple effect is going to tear this country apart economically, and I don't think anybody has thought about that one bit. When you as an employee, and I'm talking to our listeners and viewers, think about this. If you are looking at, you're in a job, and all of us have worked a number of jobs where you had people that made minimum wage, and probably was you, and they all of a sudden jumped to 15, and you were just a hair above 15, you're going to expect that that's going to extrapolate up, and you're going to multiply by that amount. You're going to say, hey, I was making 17, so they got double, I want double. And the businesses aren't going to support it. This is one of the, granted, he wants to raise minimum wage. That's fine. I don't know how long it's been at minimum wage. I don't know what, now a couple of years or whatever it's been. You would know better than me, Toby. Okay, we see incremental increases, another 85 cents, another maybe $1. I don't know, right? But I know this, when I was in high school, that was a long time ago, it was like $5 an hour, 5 something an hour, whatever it was. So it's 7 something an hour. It hasn't went up that much. You're doubling it. It's going to rip companies apart.
So you absolutely are correct, and it's basic. It's just basic common sense and understanding of the value of the dollar. You don't have to know economics per se. You don't have to be attuned. But if you understand the value of a dollar, you're gonna understand like your value, and this is something that is dramatically going to affect the economy. And I'm not saying this in a fear mongering. I'm not campaigning for anything. I'm just like, hey, here's what's up. We're talking about the rush to get things done. Well, there was a huge rush to get Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, pushed through.
Had to pass it to read it.
We witnessed in the fallout of that, and I was hopefully optimistic, for it. But we saw in the fallout of it, businesses close because the burden put on the employer to provide this health care that was unaffordable. That's why there was efforts taken in the past, in the outgoing administration, to lessen some of that. That's why the Supreme Court had to get involved in some of that. If they go through and try and, push through and do the old Nancy Pelosi, to read it, you got to pass it. If they do that, again, with the addition of minimum wage, with the addition of the environmental factors and variables, with the coming out of a pandemic, or perhaps the prolonging, there's a real chance that we're going to prolong this. We were thinking we'd be out of a mask mandate in late July. Here we are going in, late January, and we're hearing that we're going to have a federal mask mandate, put on us for months.
We thought we'd get a vaccine and life would go back to normal, and they're like, no, get the vaccine and everything stays the same.
We won't see the flourishing and the recovery of the economy. we're going to see more places boarded up. We're probably going to face a very severe economic depression, and we're going to see the one thing that America has going for it that the rest of the world doesn't end.
And
for
by the way,
first time,
they're going to blame all that on Trump for the next 3 years because they showed that in Obama.
Yeah, but like this is one of the things that you're not going to be able to hide, and you're not going to be able to. They blame Bush for things. They blame Reagan for things. They blame Bush for things. They blame Clinton for things. They blame Bush again for things. We're a different Bush. Like the one thing that is going to stop in America that we've had since our birth in 1776, the one thing that we've always had that will end is the furthering of innovation. Because right now we only got a few people in this country that can afford to innovate. And when you start taking their ability to innovate away, there will be no innovation. Our country isn't innovating.
Thank God. I don't know if Liam's saying this.
The institutions of our country are, like, for us to like get back in and get our space program going away. One of the biggest institutions and most expensive institutions we have, being NASA, it took Sir Richard Branson and Elon Musk.
I was gonna say, thank God we have Elon Musk. He's the only dude innovating
to get stuff going. Like the things that we want, like,
and he made a
innovation
flamethrower.
Is going to go. People are, we need to be more, environmentally friendly. Well, it was an innovation called fracking that has made the greatest global impact on the reduction of the carbon footprint.
Yep.
All the things that you want, you're going to lose. And the one thing that makes America so great is we have been innovative. Who brought the vaccine to the world? I know, like, the British have finally, got a vaccine that they've worked on based off the proponents of the American vaccine, they're going to bring it to the market here soon. But, like, all these things, the only reason innovation for a vaccine was possible was due to the past success of medical innovation in the pharmaceutical industry in America.
Right.
Space, America. I'm starting to sound like an Earl's Dibble song, but the reality is, you depress us economically, all that goes away.
Yeah.
Innovation comes from excess. Necessity is the mother of invention, but if you don't have the capital to support that, it falls flat.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is we figure out how to get more meat off of pork.
No, that's absolutely right. Like we talked about, if your margins are that low, you don't have that excess to reinvest in your company, reinvest in R&D, and everything you need to run an organization, whether that organization has 3 employees or 300,000 employees, right? It doesn't take that. And that's what I mean. This $15 an hour, when it was announced today, just right before we came on air, when President-elect Biden came out with his $1.9 trillion plan, $1.9 trillion, that's rolled up in it, right? This is, and we were sitting there having dinner right before the show, and I looked at my son, and I said, you're paying for that. I said, I'm paying for it. You're probably going to be, because it was all of his things he's going to do, right? His
kid's going to pay
he's
for
like,
it.
He's like $1,400 extra in the stimulus and so much of this and so much of that and all this $1.9 trillion plan. I'm like, and I said, maybe your kids. I said, but you're paying for that. I'm like, I'll be out before I have to this has to hit me, right? But they're gonna cover this. But yeah, it is. People need to pay attention, and I talked about it. I talked about it the other day with a friend, and I talked about it with some other folks that the only thing we're gonna have going for us, for those that did not vote for Joe Biden, is that we're gonna have the sad reality over the next several years to look at those people that did, that we know, our family and friends and all those that are all over social media just doing their lib stuff all over there, and say, you got what you paid for. Oh, your 401k is shrinking. Oh, you're not getting that raise. Oh, your company's laid you off. Oh, all this other stuff, the employment's climbing. You got what you wanted. That's what you voted for. There you go. Can't complain. We always say, don't bitch and complain if you don't vote. Well, if you do vote and that's what you voted for, because that's what the person said they were going to do, then you can't bitch or complain about that either. You can't say I had no idea. I thought he was just kidding, right? Or she was just kidding, because it'll probably be a she before too long. But either way, hey, I want to
no, like that's I just want to caveat on that is, I made like a couple comments last episode. Feel free to go back and if you didn't listen to it, it's on www.stewandthenunn.com. And you can listen to episode 233 with Dr. Mike Simpson, and you can hear some of the comments that I made. But one of the reoccurring messages that I received that were not, we'll say like the friendly type, were elections have consequences. And, like, you're absolutely right. They do have consequences. And this one will. And it already has, and it will. And we can say, when I say we, I mean, we can look to our left and our right on both sides and be like, you had the opportunity. Like, people are like, you can't say the election was stolen. I'm like, do you like Bernie? And like, if the response is yeah, I'm like, you should be the one saying it first.
Yeah, because it happened to you twice.
Bernie got it stolen from him twice. Y'all got a guy that didn't even, he won what? South Carolina? He won one primary, barely, and was in single digits the remainder of the other ones. Like, he got annihilated but he came out as like your guy.
With more votes
that went out first became your VP.
Yeah.
Like, the election got stolen from you too. Like, some people on the power side of that party like stole it from you, from your own base. Like,
you want to know what stole that election? That building is the DNC headquarters, right near the Capitol Police headquarters. I know right where it's at. That's what stole that election in 2016.
Like,
that's what stole the election in 2020. Yes.
Yeah, like
Kamala Harris finished 17th in the Democratic primary, and when she dropped out, she said she lost because people didn't like women and were racist and all that kind of stuff. It was like they were only Democrats voting. Like, it was a DNC primary. Like, it wasn't other people voting. Those are your own people that you're calling racist and bigots and chauvinists. That's the reason why you couldn't get support. Yet that's who got picked. Anyways.
So I want to hop on to one more thing, since we're on the business aspect real fast. I know there's one more or two other things we want to talk about.
Yeah.
But in the past couple of days, the president-elect, from the office of the president-elect, which isn't a thing.
Which is not an office. Yes. I'm gonna get a sign. Like, this is the office
of like future. I'm like, this is the office of the future. Commentator of like.
The Stew and the Nunn. We should have an office of the Stew and the Nunn show on Sirius XM, just right behind us. Like,
like they're like, you're not on, but we're gonna be. We believe we are.
We're gonna be channel 130 right there. That's what we're gonna be. We're the office of channel 130. I don't even know what that is.
The thing I want to bring up is the commentary about the aid to businesses, and the focus being first the businesses that we're going to, or the fund is going to support, are small businesses owned by minorities, people of color, and certain gender-based companies. And like, if that's not racist, I don't know what is. Like, hey, screw you, hardworking American person, for employing people, because like, you don't know what kind of employees I have. Like, you don't know what their backgrounds are. You're gonna punish my employees because like, I live in a region, like, yeah, it's true, I'm Caucasian, but I live in a region where I'm the minority, and like, you're gonna punish like my employees. You're not gonna help me like get the PPP for them, because like,
it's affirmative action.
Because I'm white
everywhere.
Because I'm white, like that's racial discrimination. And like, if we're going,
you're an immigrant,
like,
you should get this extra credit.
Right, but I don't. I get extra taxes. Like,
Queen has to get hers.
If we want to truly make things equal, we just gotta make it equal for everybody. Like, everyone has equality of opportunity. and outcomes based on effort.
Yeah.
Like, this is America. We have a document that states everyone gets equality of opportunity. Like, that's the coolest thing. It's the only place that exists on Earth. It's the coolest thing ever. Um, and if you really want to help everybody, and you want to, like, be united, and you want to, like, don't pit us against them. Don't say your business is more valuable than that business. Your business is essential. Your business isn't. Because, like, clothing seems essential. Uh, Hygiene seems essential. It seems more essential than cannabis. Like alcohol. Um, like,
Right.
you know, so, like, let's not pit us versus them. Let's make
Because that's
everything
not
equal. Say
unifying
it's equal,
anything. That's not unifying jack.
but right, it's just furthering the division.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if President Trump, President Clinton, President Reagan, President Nixon, President Kennedy, President Johnson came out and said, we're only going to help people in this order of preference? Can you imagine if they openly said that on a microphone to the world? Like, that's not, like, you can't look at it any other way than discriminatory.
Right.
You can't look at it any other way. Like, and it doesn't matter. You're like, well, you're not woke enough. Well, like, okay.
And it's not
That's not a
reverse
thing.
it's not reverse racism anymore. I hate that term. I used to use it all the time.
It's just racism.
It's just racism.
It's just racism.
There's no such thing as reverse racism. You can't say, well,
Yeah.
if it's white people, it's reverse. No, that's racist too. Still racist because
Like, and if you're saying it's like, well, racism is based on a people group in power, it's like,
you think white people.
everyone has equal opportunity to be in power in this country.
Right. Right. So I want to hit on two other things before we go, because I know we're a little over an hour. But two things I want to
Let's
get
do
your
it.
opinion on. Okay, so we're gonna start the first, and I want to close it out with another. But the first one is, we now have, you and I have gotten some firsthand reports from close friends on the ground, right? We have downtown DC right now looks like Baghdad did in 2003, right? There are 20,000 National Guard soldiers and probably others, as we heard, on every street corner. They're everywhere. There's the inauguration is not for until Tuesday, another 5 days, right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days away, and they have the city locked down with 20,000 soldiers sleeping in the Capitol building and the halls of Congress. Looks very much like the palaces of Baghdad, to be honest. Probably actually not as accommodating, because at least in Baghdad it seemed like they had more amenities. But what is your thoughts on this with these 20,000 National Guard soldiers that we know of today? We are both hearing of things that may be changing or happening, but what we can talk about is, what is it? To me, it just has such a bad appearance. I mean, they're already locking it down. They're limiting Congress to only bring one guest versus a number that they're given passes every year. It's already going to be a very scaled down event. Do you think this is overkill?
So, it's entertaining for sure, and it's not overkill. It's posturing, and
You think it's just an appearance thing? Just
yeah, absolutely, it's an appearance thing. So, you want to limit tickets? Awesome, limit tickets, because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, right? So if I listen to everything that you tell me, I shouldn't be in crowds. I shouldn't be in crowds indoors. So all the stuff inside the chamber, all the balls, all that stuff. Like, if I can't have a fundraiser to help the needy kids get school lunches, I don't see how you need an inaugural ball. Just saying. I mean, we're in time of COVID, so you want to limit tickets? Limit tickets off of your current policy. You don't have to create policy to limit it. Go off your current one.
right.
Right. So there's that. Two, if we are talking about doing the right thing to protect and secure the sacred institution of the government of the United States, the last thing you should be doing is bringing in a bunch of weekend warriors. And now, I'm saying this from a place of love.
You were a
You and
National
I
Guard.
both-
You were a National
you
Guard
and I
soldier
have
yourself.
both-
Yep.
You and I have both served and been leaders in the National Guard. And the reason why I say that you're doing it wrong is you are bringing in a crew of people that now have jobs, have other obligations that are, like you've created friction for them. Uh, you're putting them into a location to which they're going to become adversarial with the very people that they're going to have to go home and live next door to at the completion of whatever it is that might happen. And they are the worst trained and prepared for this action. If you want proper security, you don't bring in a National Guard unit. You create a task force that's authorized to utilize the means
Peace officers and law enforcement officers.
Right, that are authorized to utilize the equipment necessary to defend what's going to happen. A bunch of National Guard guys that got a 10-minute briefing on anti-riot control and how to hold a line, and like you're giving them big sticks and big shields and telling them that their ACH is going to help them. Like, that is not what's going to happen. You need to bring in people that have the mentality, the training, the de-escalation training, and the understanding of what's going to be in front of them. Instead, you're going to bring in a guy that just got told that he can't sleep in his own bed because he lives 10 blocks away, and he can't sleep in his own bed because you want him to sleep on the hard marble floor in the rotunda, right? You're giving them the worst freaking food that you could imagine because they haven't planned this out.
Dude's eating MREs. I saw pictures of it.
Exactly, right? So the dude's getting constipated. She's getting constipated. They don't have the training, and then you're putting them at a point of friction with their neighbors. This is the worst thought out and the worst executed thing, and it's the worst posturing that you could possibly do because you think you see someone in fatigues. This is just virtue signal. You think because you see someone in fatigues that they're military and that they're combat appropriate and they can fight. I don't know if you've been looking at the pictures I've been looking at, but I saw Nancy Pelosi addressing some troops, and there's probably 50 of them fat motherfuckers. Not a single one of them could pass 600-9. Their gear doesn't fit, and they sure as fuck can't fight.
Well, not to question
you need to create
the number
law
of
enforcement task force, and
Right.
you need to bring in appropriate professionals with the right training, with the right de-escalation, with the right mentality, like we've witnessed. And it's not like we don't have them. They got 140-day practice on the West Side.
Let me tell you from personal experience real quick. Most people don't know about this, my past. When I was in active duty in Fort Hood, Texas in 1988, 88, I think it was 92. I can't remember. I think it was 88. 88. The DNC was having their convention in New Orleans for the Democratic National Committee for the election in 88. And the DNC and the New Orleans police were about to strike, and all the New Orleans law enforcement was going to strike that year. You can go back, Rob, and go back and look this up. They put us on alert. I was in the 1st Cav Division, active duty. We were on alert, green ramped, on recall. This was 1st Cav. We weren't deploying back then. This is the 80s. We weren't on, we weren't 82nd, weren't any of that stuff. They had the West Fort Hood. They had C5s and C17 or C141s back then lined up with all of our gear on there. We got a quick training. We got riot shields. We got the helmets. We got freaking Maddox handles. And we were going to go down there and secure, if the police went on strike, we were going to be providing all the security for the DNC. You know what we talked about? I talked about as an 18, 19-year-old young infantryman. Let's go crack some hippie skulls. That's all we talked about. We had nothing going on. We were infantrymen. We were looking for a fight.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Let me tell you, we were looking. So
Exactly.
this is young Private Stewart. I was maybe a PFC then if I was. And all we talked about was, let's go down and crack some hippie skulls that are going to try to protest the DNC command. I didn't care what party it was. It was like, they're going to let us go take somebody on. It didn't matter. They were fellow Americans. We're like, they gave us some shields. Look at this cool stuff. They didn't give me this thing in basic training. They just taught me how to take a dude out with 3 hits. We were excited. All of us were like just rubbing our hands together. We never went. They never went on strike. I think I saw this deployment happening, and I thought of that, and I saw those soldiers, and I'm thinking, how many of them are sick sleeve on the right side? They ain't seen combat yet. They've come in since all that happened. They got all these older people in their unit that talk shit all about the stuff they did in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're sitting there going, here's my chance. I get to gear up, arm up, and take some freaking hippie on, and not even hit. I don't take whatever on, and you're right. A 10-minute briefing on how to do that with no training and all those things, with lack of training, it's only going to take one, because there's cameras everywhere, is going to catch some young soldier who wasn't properly prepared doing the wrong thing against a fellow American, and it is going to do nothing but make it worse. It is going to drive it up.
True Toby Nunn story. Florida National Guard, hurricane relief, utilizing the National Guard, platoon sergeant at the time for the Scout Recon section of the Florida National Guard, and shout out to my Seminoles. And we got tasked with guarding a food, water, and ice distribution point because the power had been out, and this hurricane had just wrecked the area. We, for the most part, were well trained. That was probably the most, shout out to Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major Dunning, one of the most professional units I ever had the pleasure of serving in, period. And that was because the senior NCO in charge was just a stud, and he accepted no less than the absolute best. And we were like pretty well prepared. But with that said, dealing with your fellow citizens is a precarious place to be. Flying down to crack some hippie skull when you got a force that's from all over the country is a lot different than if you are setting up a barricade in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And like that's something that needs to be considered. And there's the information and the force power is out there. Like, we have federal reserves in terms of manpower for such occasions.
Yeah, we have a number of law enforcement and LEOs,
and we don't have to deputize them.
No,
like we can
troopers, marshals.
We're now gonna put a bunch of I hope Antifa's not listening. I don't think we're high on their listening list, but we're gonna put, and what a lot of our viewership understand is, we're gonna put these men and women on the front line of defense at our Capitol unarmed. Now, they're going to have weapons, but they're unarmed. And, you think, what was the botched operation that Obama did, Fast and Furious? You think that was like a bad way of seeing a bunch of American weapons end up in the wrong hands? Where you're going to see the Too Fast, Too Furious at the Capitol, because they're going to old girl, and when I say old girl, I've seen 5 or 6 different pictures of female National Guard soldiers that are part of this force. They're not going to withstand what's happening. If this is really what's going to happen, that small mob that happened, at the Capitol, dragged a trained police officer out and beat him to death with flagpoles and sticks in a brutal, heinous crime. How do you think that girl's gonna do when she gets crowd surfed in and her M4 goes missing?
Oh, there's some M4s gonna get snatched.
And once that line gets broken, and you've taken a little bit of training, I've taken a little bit of training. Once that line gets broken, it's broken, and they're unarmed. And that's unarmed because of the constitutionality of the use of them in that position. They're doing it wrong. They need to have the appropriate trained people with the appropriate equipment, with the appropriate mentality.
If they're serious about this, you're right. It's just for show, because if they were serious,
they're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
They're doing it all wrong, and everything that they're doing is demonstrating they don't comprehend what's really going on. And Like, it's sad. It's horribly sad.
Right.
I said it last week. I think the Capitol Police were negligent. I think they, didn't do a good job. And when I say they, I don't mean the rank and file. I mean the leadership.
Well, here's the thing. Two things are going to come out of it if there is a confrontation. Either the soldiers are going to lose, like you talked about. They can't defend themselves, and they're going to look weak to the world, and it's going to embolden those that are aggressing against them. Think, well, look at these big tough soldiers, right? That we're going to take them out, or they're going to stand their ground and they're going to jack some people up. And what is that image going to look like of someone running with an American flag and some National Guard soldier butt stroking them or doing something to them? And what that's going to do? That's going as much as Governor Cuomo makes our soldiers look like SS Gestapo by trying to make people fill out forms at the airport. This is going to give this image to our not only our nation but the world, but really our nation of this stormtrooper mentality, putting our citizen soldiers in this role of looking like jackbooted thugs to sit there and start cracking skulls on American soil and doing that kind of stuff. It's a lose-lose either way if there's a confrontation. It's not going to end up right unless there's law enforcement and peace officers somewhere in the middle, right? There's a reason why every time National Guard has been activated, whether at the southern border or in Hurricane Katrina or at in a national convention like we did in New York in 2004 or whenever it was, right? It is because we're we don't have arrest authority. There's posse comitatus. They're not allowed to do that. They're just kind of doing the support roles. You don't put a National Guard soldier, not even a frickin' MP, which hasn't any more damn training than any other soldier, so don't even give me that crap. But not even them in a position to have to aggress or go against American citizens. You are setting a precedence that you'll never be able to roll back.
No, you are 100% correct. No, like I'm so disappointed in how this is and this virtue signaling and all this stuff. If you're concerned about a angry veteran base, which is what they've kind of painted this being, you and I have seen it, everyone's made a big point of making sure that everyone knows that the young woman that was killed was a veteran. They're making a big point of saying like some of the members that have been arrested and are being charged were active duty members of the military
or retired members,
former militaries of the military. A lot of guys are out there and it was obvious that, while they thought of themselves as operators, they had some form of military understanding and training. Like, if that's what you're worried about, don't put the lowest common denominator in front of them.
Right.
Because they're going to lose.
Yeah.
And, and this isn't something that you toy around with. This isn't something that you play a game with.
Because facing a military, if you and I are facing it, we see some E4 with a weapon, we're like, yeah, I'm going to take this from this second, right?
Well, if I'm going
But if I see a U.S. Marshal, I'm going to be like, I don't know what this guy's capable of.
If I'm going to a fight, I'm going with the mentality of winning.
Right. Exactly.
And so, if I see a formidable opponent in front of me, depending on my level of bravery that day, I engage that person. If I see a weak link, I'm just another member of the wolf pack. I'm going for the baby cow,
right.
I'm going for the baby moose.
Hey, what's the reality with the military?
Elderly caribou,
right?
It's like having a hard time on his hip and is at the back end of the herd.
And let's be honest. I'm gonna call the elephant out of the room. Let's say a couple of infantry grunts go up against him, and they see a line of National Guard soldiers, maybe a couple of young guys, and maybe an E5 corporal, female, doesn't matter. What are they gonna do? You're gonna look on that right sleeve, and you're gonna say they've been to combat. One dude's got an EIB, 3 people, or maybe someone's got a cab and a couple air assault wings, and they all look like they're less than 21, 22 years old. Like, I'm taking all these out. I beat more than that in a freaking combatives pit. It's like I'm blowing through here, right? There's no. Now I see dudes down there. They got that are racked and stacked with jump master wings and CIBs and Ranger tabs. Like, they probably had some better training. I'm gonna go for that weakest cow. I'm gonna blow through the line right here. And like you said, once you blow through, you're through.
I was sharing this information, with someone and trying to educate them because they're like, putting the military there, that's going to solve that problem. It's like, no, it's not. we put the National Guard on the border, and they got captured.
That's
They
like
took their
saying
weapons and they took their vehicles.
that's the
And
same
now those
people that say
vehicles
that.
and those weapons are being used
Right.
against our people. Like,
The people that
like,
say that
that's
are the
not what
ones
you
that
do.
say military grade is good. Hey, I heard it's military grade. Like, you don't want that. Like, that's that's
No,
not
like,
necessarily what you want.
I was on Granger.com, buying some, supplies for a business, and I had to get some shipping supplies, and there, like I was buying boxes, and there was like regular shipping boxes, and then there was military grade boxes,
Ooh.
and I was like, and one of my employees like, you should get the military grade boxes because like that'll definitely be strong, and I was like. Every military grade box I know was actually weak as shit. I want the regular box.
You never had your household goods moved. I know what military grade boxes look like. I had
And I
to
was
do
like, oh, you're killing me.
I had to do a claim a mile long. Hey, the last thing I want to hit on, because we can go over an hour and a half. I just want to ask you about this. I had this conversation in my own house the other day, and it's what I'm calling the kingmaker. So they did this whole impeachment Trump thing. So the reason they did it was to keep him from running again in 2024, which I think is hilarious. They're that worried about him. They think they beat him that well, but they're that worried that they think he can leave the circus for 4 years and come back and beat them. So they wanted to, and they came out and said, if you think I'm lying, Pelosi wanted to pass this to keep him from ever running again, right?
Any office.
Or president, I think, is it any office or presidential office?
Any office.
Okay, yeah, any office. Yeah. What I see is a guy that carried 74 million votes, and by far we saw this with 300,000 people last week, and we've seen all the people lined up at all the rallies. We've heard it. This guy controls the Republican Party. It is his party. Now, he has a couple ways he can go. He could walk away from it and say, I'm going back to my life of billionaires and just like it was a good run and I checked that block and I'm going to go back and live a happy life, right? And everyone will forget about him and it'll just be whatever, right? And he'll probably become a darling of the left again in Hollywood. Or he could stay involved in politics. And if he stays involved in politics, that dude is a kingmaker. He is going to run the Republican Party until some point where he dies down the road, or someone somehow becomes more power, has more influence and power than he does in that party, which I don't see happening while he's still on this earth. So I see him being that influential, which means these young Congress, if he endorses somebody in 2022, the ones he picked to endorse, like there's going to be a fever. If he shows up at a rally for the 2022 campaign midterms for a candidate running for Senate or House, they're going to have those tens of thousands of people there again to see him again, to hear him again. I'm wondering, are people thinking about that and realizing that he's not going away, even if you impeached him? He's not going away. He is still going to pull the strings and manage his party. And I'm wondering how many of the GOP, in what I would call the older GOP, realize that, or they really think that especially the 10 that voted to impeach him, really think that when this is all said and done, he's never going to be an influencing factor again. I'm curious about what your thoughts are on that.
So I have a couple of comments on the subject. First and foremost, the whole purpose of impeachment is to stop him from holding office again. It's a very open strategy. Obviously, like if they were really concerned about him currently in office, what can a guy do in 5 days that he couldn't if they got this impeachment through? Like they're very open about it. She said it, that they're trying to stop him from thing. We know that he holds power that they are very uncomfortable with, and we know he holds power within the party that they are very uncomfortable with, because if he didn't hold that power, his VP would have exercised the 25th Amendment. Would have even had a conversation about it in public, but he didn't. And he didn't because he wields power. He is actually strong. The Republican base support him in a way that is exceptionally unique. He called Ted Cruz a man with small hands, made fun of his dad and insulted his wife. And Cruz was a never Trumper, right? And based on his policy and based on his performance as the president of the United States, one of the greatest enemies he had, like I'd say the two top enemies he had in that primary run in 16 were Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz. Jeb Bush is, dropped out of political life and has kind of, quietly gone off into obscurity. And Ted Cruz has gone on to like be a powerhouse in the Republican Party. And let's remember, he's fairly junior.
Cruz,
yeah. And so we know that he wields power because like he has brought his enemies to his side. And that's not a Sun Tzu, like keep, your friends close, but your enemies closer. Like that's not the art of war. This isn't that. This is like he has brought them in with his abilities and with his power. And if you wanted a greater demonstration of it, you saw that the opportunity for the 25th was there and it wasn't exercised. Like whether you agree with it or not, if he didn't have power, they'd have done it.
Because they weren't afraid. They wouldn't have been afraid of him.
Right. I also think this whole 25th thing that they did on Trump is just setting the stage so that they can use the 25th later. And that's just me. If I was a betting man, which I like to gamble,
I said the same thing.
We want the American people to know what the 25th Amendment is, because most people don't know the amendments.
Because you'll be hearing this again.
But that's just, hey, let me plant the seed. Let me plant the seed about the 25th Amendment. So when we turn around and use it in 6 months, 8 months, a year, now you know why. Because we had to almost use it on Trump. Now we got to use it again. So there's that. But they are so naive to think that they can shut him down with this impeachment. Because who has been campaigning with him this whole time? Now, I don't think, Pence is for all sakes and purposes that I don't know the man personally, but he's come across as just a fine gentleman. He's never besmirched himself. He's never besmirched the country. He's never besmirched a political foe. He's come across as very statesman. He's come across very polite. He's been very effective, and he's been a very active vice president. He's not a Dan Quayle. He's not an Al Gore. He a little more subtle in his handling than Dick Cheney, but he's been a very, very active vice president. And when you measure vice presidencies, Biden versus his, there's no comparison in terms of productivity, professionalism. He didn't bring dishonor. He didn't make crazy deals. His kids aren't getting rich. He's not on television bragging about quid pro quo.
He was assigned to lead the task force, the whole task force for this pandemic.
Trusted with one of the greatest responsibilities a political leader in the country's ever faced. If there was someone you could pass the torch to, you could pass it to him. Even he isn't messing with that. His son has been out campaigning with him. His daughter has been out campaigning with him. His son-in-law has tremendously helped broker some unprecedented peace deals globally. If you think that you impeach him and you're just shutting off that faucet, you think you're shutting anything off, you're a fool.
Yeah.
He still is going to have power of influence, and his sphere of influence is some of the most powerful and rich people in the world. And what makes things happen? Money.
Yep.
Money makes things happen. And if you think for 1 second, Biden's got one hope to have a successful presidency. And I don't know, I can think of 7 countries that we can invade right now. He probably needs to hurry up and pick one. We need to take over Venezuela. We need to liberate them from their.
Well, because you mentioned it, right? We know in 2 years this Congress is going to turn over. He's done then, right? Yeah. And you got you got about a year and a half, because they're all going to be campaigning. He's got to come out of the gate strong. He's got to come out first period and make all of his goals, because the third period is done. He's smoked, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if he's going to do well on the long shift.
No, he needs 30-second shifts right? They got to get him off the ice because he may actually
So,
shoot
like-
into his own goal. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So
We come back around to hockey just for everybody to watch.
I do think Trump has some kingmaker potential.
I mean, the Clintons, until the
I-
Obamas came along, the Clintons were considered the kingmakers of the Democratic Party. They pulled the strings and made the decisions all the way. And then when Hillary lost in 16, I was gone. Bill was out there. He's hanging out with Epstein. The Obamas have taken over as the kingmakers of the Democratic Party. They pull the strings and where things go. Trump, there's never really been one of the Republicans except for the Bushes, and their time has faded. There's never been this kind of excitement over both Bushes together. There has been a Trump. He is the kingmaker. If he stays involved in politics, whatever medium it's on, if he posts or makes his own channel or comes up with his own videos or whatever, he'll have no shortage of ways to get the message out. The world, the base will react, and maybe more than the base, depending on how Biden goes.
And I believe that you're absolutely right. He can't do it today, but this time next week he can absolutely start, and I bet he already has a team working on it. He's been shut off and he's been censored. The only way for him to surpass that, to circumvent that, is to create his own network.
Did you see what's coming out tomorrow? Did you hear what he's doing tomorrow?
No.
Declassifying everything with Russiagate. Everything.
Oh, well, I mean, that needed to happen anyway.
Right.
But
I mean,
it doesn't matter who's.
I think it's going to be kind of like a mini Hanukkah. Every day is going to be a gift until the Tuesday. But
but no, like I believe that we see Obama, has kind of quietly tried to influence things in public, but we know behind the scenes they're the kingmaker. He did that. He's got to deal with Netflix, that they're making these films, these social like virtue signaling films. I have no doubt that Trump is not going to be quiet, because he is going to create a place to get his own voice. And he has the power to do it.
He wasn't ever quiet for 4 years. Why is he going to start being quiet now?
Yeah, and Obama had to borrow the money, and Obama had to make deals to do it. Trump doesn't have to.
Right.
Trump's going to be like, I'm going to start my own network, and I'm going to start my own servers, and you're not going to shut me off of, Bezos isn't going to shut me down, because I'm going to own it, because that's the way it is. It's going to be like Trump servers and the Trump cloud. And, he's going to go buy up some old shopping mall, and instead of, Rackspace being like the cloud leader, it's going to be, Trump Air, like it's going to, and it's going to happen because we know he likes to do it. And what's going to change? He's been doing it his entire life. You think he's going to go off into obscurity because you shut him down? No, this is the dude that doubles down.
If anything, you
made fun of his diet. Right. You made fun of his diet and his diet pills, and he brought the national championship football team and brought the McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's and pizza. Like you tell him like, COVID's going to kill him and he's going to die. He comes back and he did more policy in the weeks coming out of COVID than he did.
He was doing it while he was in the hospital, right?
Like you think he's going to shut up? Like, come on, man. Like I'm just ready for the entertainment.
If anything,
I'm curious,
he's
what
going to
social network platform he's going to create. What's it going to be called?
Right.
We know it's not going to be Trump Space, and we know it's going to be Trump Book, but and is it going to be like little trumpets instead of like light signals and like echoes? It's going to be like you push the button, it's do 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 do. Like
I bet he creates a network and just calls it Orange. Just calls it Orange. That's what you call it.
Like not Orange Theory, but
but the cuffs are off. Right? Some people may think he never held back when he's president, but he did. He had to do some. He really doesn't have to now. It's like friends of ours, Toby, that are currently working for the government. They may not be working for the government next week. They can, it's like someone that retires. They're in the military. They can't come on podcasts. They can't come on. They got to watch their. Oh, they're retired. What does a retiree do? They do two things. They grow their goatee, and they start sharing their opinion. Right? And so he can get out there. He's got the audience. He's got the medium. He's got the money. By all means, he's probably going to be more dangerous to the Democrats out of office than if they made sure he stayed in another 4 years. But anyways, this is a long show, my friend. We went long, so probably won't get it.
Sorry, I was like, all right, I was fact checking something really fast.
Oh, that's okay.
Um, the you know, but sorry, I was trying to fact check something. Someone made a comment in the
Oh, I saw that
uh,
about Pelosi.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what that's
so
about.
I was just looking. I was trying to see if I could fact check it real fast.
Was Infowars put something up or what? Our boy Alex
I don't
Jones.
know. I didn't see anything, but
Yeah.
I have no doubt. No, like we have been going for a bit, but just one thing since Pelosi was brought up, uh, the the double standard and the abuse of power, it's going to fall at her feet too. This like reaching out to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs
Oh.
and asking the chairman of the Joint Chiefs like to step in, like that's the definition of military coup.
Yes.
That's the definition of treason.
Not to let the president make troop movement decisions and to stop them from happening, and take those from Congress.
You got to change the Constitution for that, sweetheart. The military serve at the pleasure of the president.
Yes.
He is the commander, or she is the commander in chief.
See, we could go a whole nother hour just talking about that. We're not going to, everyone. But that's how big this is. This is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on my notes to talk, and like I know we've been going over on time, but we definitely need to address it. I think that's like
because she wasn't a private citizen or even just she is the number 3 in line of succession.
Yeah. No, that's straight up.
Yeah.
The definition of treason, and it's the definition of sedition. Yes. It is an attempted military coup.
Yes.
And she utilized her position and power to influence or attempt to influence. Like that's an impeachable offense. Like that's
kind of like
imprisoning.
It's kind of like when you accuse someone of doing.
It's actually a capital.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you accuse someone and just accuse over and over they're doing quid pro quo, and then they got you on video doing quid pro quo. No, I told him he wants that money. He's got to drop those, fire that dude, right? Yes. Just so everyone's clear what we're talking about. You may have heard on the media, because some of the media carried it. She didn't just call General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and say, hey, you shouldn't let him have access to the nuclear codes. No, which in itself is exactly what Toby just said, sedition and coup. She also said, you should not let him make any troop movement decisions or anything about that without consulting us. Don't let the president make those decisions, right? So, yeah, it wasn't just, hey, don't make sure you hide the football from him. Don't let that Luke captain walking around with the nuclear football or whoever handcuffed to him, get near him. Make sure keep him in the crapper. No, it was don't let the president make decisions about the use of military force anywhere in the world while he's still president. This should be alarming and scaring the living shit out of every freaking American.
It should also be like a free set of bracelets.
Yes, instantly.
It should be
even a nice orange jumpsuit.
It shows the professionalism of General Milley. He's not my favorite military leader of all time, but it shows the professionalism of that office. That he shrugged it off, reminded her of that that's not how it works, and kind of sent her on her way. But if it was somebody else, she'd have got bracelets.
Yep, absolutely. If a Republican had called, if Lindsey Graham had called the chairman of the Joint Chiefs while Obama was in charge and tried to do that, they would have him rolled up in a New York second, right?
Yeah,
in a second, right? Absolutely. If McConnell tried to do that, right? When he was in, if McConnell waits to next week and says we think he's got dementia, don't let him do anything with troops. You call me first. You call us. We'll do it. They'll roll him up. But we'll have to save that. We've been going for a long time, almost 2 hours. I can't believe it. But
another time.
Yes, we want to thank everyone. You guys stuck with us. Our numbers have been running great the whole show. I'm glad we kept everyone entertained or informed or whatever kept you here. The Sabres did lose to the Caps. Very, very sad. Happened 6-4, the open net at the end. But, very glad you guys stayed with us. I think we can see regardless of who's in office or who was in office, there's probably still going to be no shortage. I predict, Toby, we're going to be talking Trump's name for a while as he does take those cuffs off and starts to become the kingmaker. I think he's going to be, I think, and he makes his own channel. There's going to be no shortage of stuff to talk about. We have a guest coming up next week from GB Outdoors that Rob the
Green Beret Outdoors.
Is that what it stands for? Okay, cool.
It is, yeah.
That Rob the unpaid producer's lined up, so we got some great guests coming up. Please stay with us every Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern. Here, Stu and the Nunn. Thank you guys for listening, watching, and letting us into your lives for a little bit on this Thursday night. With that being said, Toby, are you ready to call it a night?
Let's do it.
All right, everyone, you guys have a good night. Thank you so much. We'll see you all next week. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.